There is a version of your life that never gets built, not because you lacked ability, not because opportunity never arrived, but because you were simply too comfortable to reach for it. That idea might be uncomfortable to sit with, and that discomfort is exactly where this conversation needs to start. Most people move through their 20s and 30s with a quiet but persistent feeling that they will figure things out eventually. The job pays enough, the apartment is fine, the routine is manageable, nothing is broken, so nothing needs fixing. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But underneath that surface, something important is happening. Time is passing. Compounding is either working for you or it is working against you. And comfort, the very thing that feels like a reward, is often the reason people arrive at 40 or 50 still wondering why their life looks exactly the way it did a decade ago. This video is not about making you feel bad about where you are. It is about helping you see something that most financial education content misses entirely. Comfort is not neutral. It is not a harmless pause. It is an active force that shapes your decisions, your habits, your financial trajectory, and ultimately your sense of what is possible. When you understand how that force works, you can start making choices that are genuinely aligned with the life you say you want. Let us start with a simple truth. Human beings are wired to seek ease. That is not a flaw. For most of human history, conserving energy was a survival strategy. Doing less when you could was smart. The problem is that we are living in a world that has completely flipped that equation. In today's environment, the people who build real independence are usually the ones who consistently choose the harder option before the easier one becomes unavoidable. And yet the comfort instinct keeps pulling people back toward what is familiar, what is safe, and what requires the least immediate effort. Here is where it gets interesting. Comfort does not usually announce itself as a problem. It does not arrive with a warning label. It disguises itself as practicality. It says things like, "Now is not the right time," or "I will make that move once things settle down," or "I am actually doing pretty well compared to most people." And every single one of those thoughts sounds reasonable. They are also the exact thoughts that keep most people exactly where they are for years longer than they needed to be. Think about the person who stays in a job that pays adequately but offers no real growth. They are not unhappy enough to leave. The paycheck clears. The benefits are decent. The commute is manageable. But 3 years pass, then 5, then 8. And when they finally look up, they realize they have been solving the same problems they were solving on their first week, earning a salary that has barely kept pace with inflation, and building skills that are slowly becoming less valuable in a market that keeps moving forward. The comfort of that job did not protect them. It simply delayed the consequences long enough that the eventual cost felt like a surprise. This pattern shows up in personal finance with striking regularity. One of the most common examples is the person who keeps money sitting in a low-interest savings account, not because they have thought it through and decided that is the best strategy, but because moving it somewhere else requires effort and research and a tolerance for uncertainty. The comfortable choice is to leave things as they are. But the cost of that comfortable choice compounds quietly every single month. The gap between what their money could have been doing and what it is actually doing grows wider over time. And because no single day looks dramatically different, the loss never feels real until it is too late to recover it fully. There is a concept worth naming here, and it is the difference between passive comfort and active comfort. Passive comfort is when you do nothing and the situation remains tolerable. Active comfort is when you deliberately choose a lower level of effort because the short-term ease feels more valuable than the long-term reward. Both forms cost you. But active comfort is especially worth examining because it involves a real decision, even if that decision feels automatic. Every time someone orders delivery instead of cooking and investing that money, every time someone upgrades their living situation before their income has actually justified the upgrade, every time someone puts off learning a new skill because the current one still gets the job done. These are all moments where the comfort instinct wins, and the future self absorbs the cost. None of those individual moments is catastrophic, but they are cumulative. And the cumulative effect of consistently choosing present ease over future positioning is a life that keeps shrinking rather than expanding. Now let us be clear about something. This is not an argument for suffering. This is not about punishing yourself for living on the bare minimum to prove a point. The goal is not discomfort for its own sake. The goal is intentionality. The goal is developing the habit of asking a simple but powerful question before you default to the comfortable option. You ask yourself, Is this choice serving the life I am building, or is it just making right now easier at the expense of what comes next? That question sounds simple, but most people never ask it, because comfort creates a kind of mental fog. When everything feels fine, the urgency to think strategically disappears. And when the urgency disappears, so does the forward momentum. People who build genuine financial independence over time share one trait that is rarely glamorous enough to make headlines. They stay in a mild and manageable state of productive tension. They are always working on something slightly ahead of where they currently are. They are slightly outside their comfort zone often enough that growth becomes their baseline rather than the exception. The psychology behind this is worth unpacking. When you are inside your comfort zone, your brain operates on autopilot. Decisions are easy because they are familiar. You know what to expect, so you do not have to think too hard. That is efficient in certain contexts. But in the context of building a life, operating on autopilot means you are essentially running the same program over and over and expecting a different output. The output does not change because the input never changes. Comfort is the reason the input stays the same. When you step outside your comfort zone in a measured and deliberate way, something different happens neurologically. Your brain becomes more engaged. You start paying attention more closely. You start noticing things you previously ignored. You start making connections between ideas and opportunities that were invisible to you when you were coasting. This heightened engagement is not just a motivational concept. It has real downstream effects on the quality of the decisions you make and the opportunities you are able to recognize and act on. There is also a compounding effect to personal discomfort tolerance that mirrors the compounding effect of money. Every time you push through a moment of discomfort and come out the other side having learned something or built something, your capacity for the next challenge increases slightly. Over years, the person who has been regularly choosing growth over ease develops an almost entirely different relationship with difficulty than the person who has been consistently avoiding it. The first person sees a challenge and thinks, "This is the kind of thing I do." The second person sees the exact same challenge and thinks, "I am not sure I am ready for this yet." That internal narrative is not a small thing. It shapes whether you apply for the opportunity, whether you make the investment, whether you start the side project, whether you have the conversation that changes your financial situation. Your relationship with discomfort is directly related to the size of the life you are willing to build. Now let us talk about what this actually looks like in practical terms, because good ideas without practical grounding are just entertainment. One of the most impactful places to start is with your financial defaults. A default is whatever happens automatically when you do not actively choose something different. Most people's financial defaults were established in their early adult years and have never been revisited. They spend a certain percentage of their income on housing because that is what they have always done. They save a certain amount because that is the number they landed on years ago. They carry certain subscriptions and services because canceling them would require a decision they have not bothered to make. Defaults feel comfortable because they are invisible, but they are also the foundation of your financial architecture. And if your defaults were set during a time when you were less informed, less intentional, or simply going with the flow, they are probably not optimized for where you want to go. Revisiting your defaults is uncomfortable because it means confronting the gap between what you have been doing and what you could have been doing. But that discomfort is the price of progress. Another practical area is skill development. The labor market is in a state of continuous reorganization. Skills that were highly valuable 5 years ago are being automated, outsourced, or commoditized. Skills that will be highly valuable 5 years from now are available to learn today, often at very low cost. But acquiring them requires effort and a willingness to be a beginner again, both of which run directly against the comfort instinct. The person who invests time into developing skills that the market is moving toward while most people are still coasting on the skills the market is moving away from creates a compounding advantage that shows up as career earnings, negotiating power, and optionality over time. None of this requires dramatic life upheaval. It does not require quitting your job tomorrow or moving to a new city, or overhauling your entire financial life in a weekend. What it requires is a shift in the operating system. It requires replacing the question of how do I keep things comfortable with the question of what is the most useful thing I could be doing right now given where I want to be in 5 years. That reframe, applied consistently, changes everything gradually, and then all at once. The most powerful thing you can do right now is simply become more honest with yourself about where comfort has been running the show. not with judgment, but with clarity. Look at the areas of your life where the situation has been the same for longer than you can justify. Look at the financial decisions you keep deferring. Look at the skills you keep meaning to develop. Look at the moves you have been telling yourself you will make once the timing is right. Those areas are the map. They are showing you exactly where the work is. The future you want is not locked away behind some extraordinary stroke of luck or some rare window of opportunity. It is built, quietly and consistently, through a series of ordinary choices made with a longer time horizon in mind. It is built by the person who decides, not once but repeatedly, that they are willing to trade a small amount of present comfort for a meaningful amount of future freedom. You already know what that version of your life looks like. The only thing standing between you and it is the willingness to make it more important than the comfort of staying where you are. If this gave you something to think about, take a second and leave a comment below with one area of your life where you think comfort has been slowing you down. Reading those responses is genuinely one of the most interesting parts of running this channel. And if you found this useful, a like goes a long way in helping this content reach people who need it. Subscribe if you want to keep thinking this way, because there is a lot more where this came from.